All right, so what we've gathered here, kinda virtually. We're once again not in the same room with one another.
As far away from each other as can possibly be.
That's entirely untrue. We're still all like in the same city. We could get much further if we tried.
That's true.
If we had the tenacity and the gumption, we could.
Pretty good distance, being still within the city bounds.
Actually, yeah, I guess we'd have the city somewhat surrounded.
Yeah.
It's hard to do this without seeing your face, Dave. Giving me those sideways glances. Giving
Those
me
disapproving looks.
that raised eyebrow from time to time.
I mean, just imagine it. Do you want me to just send you a picture of it now? And you can just imagine it the whole time.
It's giving me that disapproving glare.
I mean, know that it's constantly on.
Oh, I'm assuming.
But yeah, so we are very social distancing once again. And hopefully we corrected some of the problems in the recording last time. Apologies to all the listeners. That was not our finest recording hour.
It was a learning experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're using a healthy stack of free software to do this between Discord and Audacity.
How old is Audacity? Like, is that predate Cool Edit Pro days, or is that around? Is that post?
I think it's post Cool Edit, because Cool Edit I had in the 90s.
Okay. Yeah, Cool Edit was definitely 96, I think, or 95.
Or was Audacity like the next version of it? Did it turn into Audacity, or am I thinking of something else?
1999 is their first year, they claim.
For Audacity?
It's a CMU project. Yeah.
Oh, it came out of CMU?
I did not know that, yeah.
I didn't know
Evidently
that.
it did.
So we're using free Pittsburgh brewed software. How appropriate.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Cool Edit is now Adobe Audition.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was saying. Audition, not Audacity. Okay. Yeah, and my bad. Close.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about trackers. We talked about Fast Tracker and what was the Mod Tracker?
Mod Tracker.
Oh yeah, Mod Tracker. Oh, the other one I was thinking of was,
What was Mod Tracker?
Ahmed.
Mod Tracker. I'll take what's Mod Tracker for 200, Alex.
Hopefully this isn't like a recurring thing. We just keep going further and further into the past.
I'm into it. Hammerhead, dude.
Oh, I do love Hammerhead. When it worked. I had a lot of trouble at the time getting Hammerhead to work on the 486 that I was running it on. But that's not what we came here to talk about.
No. Fuck software. We're here to talk about gear.
Did anybody have software on their list of things?
Fuck no.
No.
I don't think we did. No, this is all hardware.
In fact, I'm maybe commenting on enjoying not using a computer so fucking ever lately.
Yeah, that's kind of that's the boat that I'm trying to get into. Like, I was tired of a computer for a while already, but like now working from home every day, and then when I'm done working from home, I'm just still sitting there on a computer. Like, that's the last thing I want to look at when I'm working on music right now.
But Nick might be the closest to living the dream of the completely computerless setup.
I feel like I am living the dream right now. Because, like, okay, get into the Sound Devices Mixpre 6 version 2. So I got this, like, wild hair up my ass. And partially because it's like, humid upstairs. I've got, like, fortunate to have central air in the house, which was, like, required when I started working from home years ago. And but it's still humid up there, and I was just like working in the same spot that I had my studio gear, and I'm like, fuck this, right? Like, I got to get the fuck out of here. So I also happen to need a dining room table for domestic, reasons, if you will. And I'd never fucking eat on the thing. It's got gear and a computer set up on it right now. Just the computer for podcast recording. But I got this Mixpre 6 and was like, you know what? Like, I just need 6 tracks to record anyway. I need, like, drum machine, synthesizer, and then synth 2 and effects or something like that. So I've been sitting here down at this table, like, at night, like, working on stuff lately the past couple of days. This thing just showed up, like, a couple of days ago. And, man, it's really nice. It's nice just knowing that I just hit this record button and it immediately starts recording all the tracks. Like, I got it set up one time and didn't have to do anything other than hit record and, like, see these, like, perfect fucking meters show me my levels. And I can be like, oh, okay, I'm going to go to like the next thing. I'm going to change this modular patch. I want to go to the next piece. I just hit record again. It adds a timestamp, and I fucking go to the next thing. At the end of the night, and this is one of my favorite features of this thing. It's got internal SD card. So you've got to give it like a fast, like has to be class 10 or higher SD card to record all the shit. But it's also got auto copy to a USB port on it. So you can just put a thumb drive into that port. And as soon as you hit stop or you hit another take, it's internally copying that data over to the USB. So at the end of it, I just like, okay, I'm done with this recorder. I turn it off. I take the thumb drive out. And then I go sit on the couch with the laptop. And I'm like, what the fuck did I record? And it's beautiful right now. It's like this harvesting session where I've been using this shit completely in the dark. I realized that I know my modules pretty well. And I know the analog rhythm really fucking well. And I've just been like zoning out and tracking shit. And I think like one more week and I'm going to be ready to like mix down and actually like get to this release. And I was just kind of fumbling around before upstairs trying to like get like so much gear working. And now I've got like a 7U IntelliGel, the rhythm, the H9 and this recorder. And that's fucking it. And I could probably get rid of like everything else but a polysynth at this point in like a MIDI box. And I wouldn't fucking care.
What's that thing called again?
It's Sound Devices, and so they generally make like film shit. Sound Devices all started with film, and audio production for film. So it's like a really like burly, small Mixpre 6. They make a 3, a 6, and a 10, and it's their kind of consumer version of their super high end shit, which goes up to like the $5,000 range, like $3,000. Like if you're you know, that's like, I think they were using it on like Star Trek or some shit like that. Like it's what you use if you record audio in films, basically, and actually use that audio.
I had never heard of it until you mentioned that you got one. And I was like looking at the website and I was like, never heard of these guys. I was like, these look pretty sweet.
It was through Rich Devine, actually, that I first heard about Sound Devices and was like, oh shit. And then I started noticing it more in like Tape Op and other magazines. And I was like, okay, this looks like, this is what I want. I want like multi-track recording that's standalone that I can just put onto a DAW. And now it's like I could do what I need to do on any computer that'll run Ableton. I don't even need an audio interface, even though this thing will work that way. Before it was always like this, had to have this low latency audio interface so I can do this. Like I give up things like overdubs, but like shit, I can just line that up in Ableton and do it anyway now. Mm-hmm. Like that's not like, I'm not even sweating that. Like DAWs are like, it's perfect for that, you know? So I don't have like the synced MIDI of what I was doing before, but I just use the clock of the rhythm into the modular, and the analog rhythm clock is like super dead on solid and always has been. So that shit like lines up perfectly. And the Eloquencer is my main sequencer drive in the Voltage Lab and the 301. And it's just like, oh, these are the limits that you should set for yourself. It's just fucking so perfect.
So you're sending MIDI clock from the rhythm now to like everything?
Yeah, it goes into the 1U MIDI interface on the 7U on the IntelliGel, and that goes to the Eloquencer clock. It goes to the 4 millisecond peg ping inputs to like clock those modulators, and then just wherever else it needs to go from there.
Seems stable.
Oh yeah. Okay. Totally super dead on, as tight as anything else I've ever used. Like hardware stable, you know. It's nice.
That was one of the things I was trying to consider, like when I was looking at multi-track recorders, because I've been in the same boat trying to figure out if I want to go that route or not instead of using my computer. And I was just trying to wrap my head around like what would I use as like the most stable clock source if I were to go that route. Well, actually, I don't even use my audio interface to send clock anymore. I had to get a separate MIDI interface because the clock out from my Scarlett 18i20 Gen 2 kept screwing up. Like it was unreliable, and some sequencers I was trying to clock with it just did not like it for whatever reason, and it just kept causing weird glitches. It was making my DAW freak out. Like it was I don't know why, but
like
when I would
freak out how?
It was like causing artifacts. You know, when you go into like the ASIO panel, you can adjust latency and things like that. It didn't matter what latency I'd put it at. If I was running MIDI clock out of this thing, it would cause spikes in the latency on occasion, like just very intermittent spikes. Like the CPU would just spike up for a second and cause hitches and things like that. And And it took me forever to figure out what the hell was causing it. Because, like, I thought it was, like, a problem on my computer, you know. But I had rebuilt my entire desktop a couple months ago, and the problem persisted. So I was like, okay, clearly it wasn't anything on my computer. So then I just started going piece by piece, and I figured out it was MIDI out of my interface. So I disabled it, and now I'm using a Roland little, like, USB interface to send MIDI clock out separately from my audio interface, and everything's been smooth since. So
Nice.
Focusrite kind of sucks.
I've never had good luck with using a computer for MIDI out.
No.
Even MIDI in has been temperamental. I mean, nothing compared to like actually having a piece of hardware. Either the Electron, I think I'd rather have an Electribe doing the master clock, master sequence.
Really?
It's more reliable. Oh yeah, no, I've always had a problem with computer, and it's always been nothing as dramatic as what you just described.
I can't even
I've always had problems.
I can't even get the Gmail app to successfully tell me if I have a fucking email or not. Like, they have broken that and fixed it in the changelog so many fucking times that I'm just like, oh, you can't tell me how many fucking emails I have. Like, I don't, there are too many layers for USB MIDI to ever work. It's just like, it's like Bluetooth, you know? It's like, oh, there are like 10 implementations of these 4 different specs. Like, you fucked up. You know, like,
And it's just like software in general. I mean, there's just so many layers of abstraction on top of every piece of software we use. And, you know, and at some point, a piece of hardware will eventually get an instruction, but it's gone through libraries and abstractions. And it's a miracle any of this stuff works at all, let alone something that's so highly relying on timing, real-time processing like MIDI.
I've always kind of been the opposite. like you guys are well more versed in MIDI on hardware than I am. Like, I tend to not even touch it on hardware ever. Like,
did you have like a bad experience with it? Because I mean,
no, it wasn't the way I worked. Like, from the time I've ever started making computer music, I've used my computer for recording, and it's always been my thing. Like, as soon as I hit play or record on the computer, I want everything else to just be in sync and coming into the computer for recording and multi-tracked out. And yeah, it's been like 15 years of the same bullshit. So I'm kind of finally wanting to shift gears a little bit and maybe go, like Nick is saying, you know, go a hardware route here and just sync everything outside of the computer, record everything outside of the computer, and only use the computer for layering the final recorded results.
Yeah, if I could just get down to just doing arranging, and I kind of am. The last bit really for me is I still record in Ableton. And then do arrangement in it. But if I could even remove recording and literally just had, you know, throw these things into Ableton and just do arrangements, I would be super okay with that.
That's where I'm going. I'll always arrange in Ableton at this point unless something drastically changes. It's just too natural to use that. But, you know, I was thinking about this the other day because it was just up way too late. And I was like, okay, I have like a 7-core modular, if you will. It's just completely distributed. There are literal like ARM cores in there. Some of them up to like a gigahertz of like, okay, like this is my fucking computer, you know? And I was even talking to the AfroRack guy about that. And super cool, by the way, super worthwhile program. And like we were talking like part of the reason he likes teaching about modular specifically to kids is to like to have you think about systems a little differently. And it's not like, of course you're going to sit down and like, well, Ableton's done that for you. You know, it's a little different thing to be like, oh, I can influence this system. Not like this is well hashed shit, but it's just like kind of the way you think about systems is important, I think. And like, I don't trust a central threading mechanism for music anymore, you know?
I like that. I like that mindset. I've kind of been going the same direction. It's weird because I don't think we've even really discussed it up until now, but yeah, I've been on a similar page during this quarantine, drifting away from the computer. Like, my trust in it has been broken too many times over.
Like Nick was saying, though, I mean, I think a lot of this is also driving us to think about our relationship with computers. Even though we'd had, before all of this, spent a lot of time on computer, it was usually like a different computer or in at least a different setting. But now when it's I think it's just so much more obvious that like all I've done is sat at a computer.
Not just at a computer, but in the same room. Like, my work from home office is also my studio now, and it's also my recreational gaming computer. So like everything is happening in this room, usually in front of a screen.
Mm-hmm.
So like I just have to deviate from that in order to get into the mindset of like creating. You know, it's like otherwise.
We've definitely talked about getting away from computers in the past.
We have,
but it was, but not to this degree.
Yeah, it's not this
with this urgency.
Pressing. Yeah, it's like this. It's more urgent now, I think.
Because I had to remember too why that started for me, and it was when my wrists were fucking up because of repetitive strain injuries at my job. That I was like, okay, like, because I would work, my web job, I would do freelance, and then I would like. I remember like bug testing Live 4 and like making music and being like, okay, I literally like I put in 18 hours on a fucking computer today. And that's when my wrist started to fuck up, and it was like, well, you've got to pick. Like you got to find something that's different if you want to keep doing any of this. Because the reality was like, or you have to quit like the way you support yourself, and you don't have a good way to like fix that right now. So yeah, part of it was like just wanting to like, I can't keep using a mouse, or I can't like just hunch all day like this.
How much did that thing run? Cost-wise?
The recorder?
Yeah.
It was $900. It's definitely not cheap.
Yeah.
That's the 6-channel one though, right?
Yeah, 6 channels, right?
Yeah. You can get the other one for like $600, and it was at that point like, oh, I'm gonna pay like the extra $300 to get double the channels and like the 6 inputs, and the 3 doesn't have combo jacks. Like, and that brings us to the Zoom F6 is out there too, and the Zoom F6 is like half the price. But it doesn't like, if you look at the front of it, that you can't use the knobs very well. They're like jammed in together, and everybody complained about that. And also it doesn't have combo jacks, so I'd have to have like a wiring harness just to convert the instruments to pure XLR. And that was actually what prevented it. I would have gotten it if I didn't notice at the last minute, like, oh shit, I'm going to have to like buy cables and make them to fucking use this. Fuck you. I don't have time for that right.
That's a little surprising.
Yeah.
That is surprising. I feel like the combo jack is like standard issue now.
Yeah, that's like no brainer, right? Like, why wouldn't you pay Neutrik the extra, like, I mean, it's probably an extra $1, but that's money well spent. Like, dollar, like production scale dollars. Like,
Right. I wouldn't have even checked, honestly.
Yeah.
I would have just assumed.
Because I didn't buy your fucking product because of that. And I would have been sitting here using it right now if not. And I'm glad, like, actually, I had to read both manuals to see what I was getting, and they had so many, like, the Mixpre 6 seemed like they had thought of everything. It was, like, clearly, like, okay, people used the first one, and they got feedback on everything, basically. And it's cool, too. There's a USB-C jack, and you can, like, if I hooked it up right now, I could just be also streaming all this audio to my computer at the same time while it's recording internally and while it's backing up on the USB drive. It just, like, it works. Also, I could, like, throw it down the street and it would fuck up the street more than the device. You know what I mean? Like, it's really well made. I got it and I was like, oh, this is nicer than anything I've ever had.
So you mentioned Divine was talking about it. How was he using it? Is he using it, like, in studio, or is it, like, something he takes for, like, field recordings or something?
Good question. So this is one of the ones that supports ambisonic recordings, like the VR audio, but he was also using like their even more expensive devices that were out before this existed, just to do like his super high res field recording, because you can do like 128 kilohertz on this, which will let you do the trick of like recording at ultra high sample rate and then pitching that shit down and getting all those artifacts that you would miss at lower sample rates. Does
it have a battery, or was he using like a power source or something, like a USB power source?
A few options for that. So it comes with a AA battery thing that clips into the back.
Oh, no shit.
But you can also get, and you can get those in 2 sizes, but it also takes the Sony L camcorder batteries that people use. And apparently, if you hook up one of those, you can use it like all day, basically. Or if you they recommend these Anchor batteries. Wow. And they're like, yeah, we've like had multiple days of like multi-track recording on a battery charge before.
No shit.
Yeah, so it's like, it's pretty slick.
I was like kind of curious before we started recording. Now I really, really want one.
Yeah, you kind of got me a little jelly.
Sold.
I would gladly shit talk it if I didn't really like it, but so far it's like, it's doing what I wanted it to.
I trust the listeners know that we would not hold back.
I saw people bitching online. Surprise. There are 2 modes for this thing. There's a basic and an advanced mode, right? So if you have in the basic mode, you can use it without even looking at a manual out of the box and record a podcast. Like it's It couldn't be any fucking easier. But there was a dude bitching about the advanced mode having too many options. And it's like, they gave you a really fucking configurable device and you're bitching because there are too many options to go through.
So
It's
they wanted a basic, an intermediary mode, and an advanced mode.
pretty much. And it was like, man, like, and he was like, I know, I'm just like, it's because I couldn't immediately figure it out. It's like, just shut the fuck up. It's like,
Yeah.
It's perfect. Sorry, I'm having a day. One of the last things is that 32-bit recording, which I'm actually using for the first time right now. And they claim like, and the same thing with that Zoom F6 is like you don't need to set the level. And on the Zoom F6, you actually can't set any input gains if you have it in that mode, because they will say that like you would have to be turning up the most sensitive mic as high as it goes next to like a jet engine for it to clip or something ridiculous like that. Because it's got like 770 decibels of like input range, which is like,
Wow.
yeah, that's ridiculous, right? That's because it uses a pair of AD converters apparently, and that's how they get that much dynamic range, which I don't pretend to understand how that works at all. I've read through it and could nod along to myself, but like I don't know, electrically how that fucking works the way it does.
Math magic.
Yeah, saying that, I could probably get a much different job if I did. So yeah, I'm like super into it. I'm sorry that you now want to spend like a lot of money, but
Yeah, and this is the wrong time to have that discussion with me too, because I'm like, I'm elbow deep in rearranging and rewiring my studio right now, like trying to just rework my entire workflow basically.
That is so weird because we didn't talk about this, and I did the same thing.
Yeah, it's
Like I just finished it.
seems like all three of us are in sync.
It's a little creepy actually. And yeah, it was just like I woke up one day and was like, I don't like this. It wasn't like I had this like grand plan. I haven't been thinking about it for a long time. I just like woke up and looked at it and I'm like, no, this isn't right.
No, I'm the exact same way, dude.
Unplugged everything, took like every power cord, every audio cable, got rid of the like the patch bay, just started putting it back up and was like, no, you should be here. And you should be here, and you should be here. And then it was like a weekend. And at the end of it, I'm like, oh, yeah, this is what it should have been all along.
Huh.
And now I'm super happy with it. And, like, even just having finished that, just now I've been, like, doing a ton of shit.
The weekend I picked to do that was this one. Because I was like, I got a 3-day weekend for the holiday. I'm going to use that opportunity to just rewire, rework everything. I did the same thing, put the patch bay in the closet, got a line mixer that I'm now utilizing every single input and output on it. So it's 10 inputs, 2 auxiliary sends, 1 balanced XLR out. So I'm using that to its like full capacity, and I'm thinking about getting a second one. And just figuring out where things need to be, like gear-wise and within the modular. I was rethinking where things should be in the modular, stuff like that, coming up with like a better workflow.
I think mine may have actually been prompted by getting a palette, one of the IntelliGel palette cases to go at my 7U.
Same here.
So I had things kind of like spread out in like a couple of these tiny like 4MS pods. And the pods themselves were fine, whatever, but I was getting noise out of them. And I was like, okay, I'm going to get a palette. And then once I got that, I was like, oh, I think that just kicked my brain into, we were going to reorganize this. Don't stop there.
I did the same. Yeah.
That's really fucking weird, man, because I also did the same. Last week I mentioned I was going to swap out the power supplies in my dope for cases again. And that was like what initiated this whole thing. Like I did the surgery on my second P9 case, got a PSU3 in there, eliminated any noise, got enough power to run everything now. And that just like started a chain reaction in my brain of like getting everything else in order. Like how we were talking earlier, like it's hard to get into the flow when you're also like doing everything else in the same space and staring at a screen and all that. So I wanted to come up with a workflow that has like, it's fluid and the most minimal amount of preparation required to get into the groove of creating, recording, editing. So I wanted to make sure everything was like set up for that. Eliminate things that, have too much menu diving, which I hate. Eliminate anything that just has too many key combos or just, I'm tired of having to memorize or reference a manual for every little module because they got too much shit crammed into a small interface. You know what I mean? It's like trying to do away with that, stick with modules that I jive with that have all the controls up front. My line mixer, I like that. I don't have to recalculate like with a patch bay where everything's going to have to go and relabel shit. Like everything has its own dedicated channel, its own mute, gain, attenuation, sends, the whole 9 yards. Like everything's just up front, ready to go. Always plugged in now. So yeah, I don't know. It's been a big reworking, and like the last step in that was me going back and forth about possibly doing a multi-track recorder now instead of depending upon the computer. And Nick, you're kind of like pushing me in that direction now, even harder.
Yeah, that's so funny because I did the similar thing with the modular itself too. Like posted fucking Instagram photo of the setup I was using, and I like worked with that for a night, and that led me to do the same thing. Like, okay, like half of the complex modules, like I'm not using them right now, and they need to come out. And I could take the stuff out of the palette and like put it all in one case, and then added the rhythm, and it was like no friction, It was just like immediately, okay, like you should just work with this for a good minute.
I am a little creeped out that we all sort of came to these ideas independently and around the same time.
It's a little weird.
Because also, I just rewatched Minority Report, and they have those three.
Shut the fuck up, dude. You just rewatched Minority Report.
I did, yeah. It was like
Oh,
on
did
Netflix.
I, dude? I bought VR. I bought an Oculus Rift S 2 weeks ago, and it got me in this vibe where I wanted to rewatch all of my favorite like VR augmented reality type of fucking movies. So I watched Lawnmower Man,
Nice.
and I watched Minority Report, and yeah, Minority Report's like still one of my favorites. It's held up incredibly well, in my opinion.
I was surprised how much it held up. I have it on DVD somewhere. Like, I don't know why I waited for it to show up on like Netflix to watch it again. I was like, oh, I'm gonna be disappointed. This isn't gonna hold up as well. And no, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Again, though, it is creepy that we ended up watching like a 20-year-old movie.
Yeah, it's a little weird,
at the
man.
same time.
Getting some strange synchronicities going on here. Get out of my head, Dave.
Is Nick quiet right now because he also secretly watched Minority Report and is just like completely frightened in terror?
I feel like I should be watching it right now. While we're doing this, just watching it,
Next up on my list that I haven't gotten to yet was Brain Scan. I was going to rewatch that one.
Oh, it's been a little.
One of my all-time favorites. Surprisingly, though, I don't think it held up well. Like, just going through it in my head, I can already tell that it probably hasn't aged like a nice milk out in the summer heat.
Now, do you think it's just not as good, or do you think it has that sort of like when you go back and watch any 80s movies, you're like, oh, this is problematic? Like,
Was that 80s or was that 90s? I think that was 90s because it's
was that
got like
90s?
the internet, like the if I
I thought
recall,
it was
it's got like
80s.
real basic internet functionality going on there for him to
That
like
was
get the
90s.
updates. It's got CD-ROMs, so that's got to be 90s.
Yeah, it's got to
I
be.
remember he gets a little brain scan disc.
oh my God, it's 94. I was way the fuck off. I seriously thought that was an 80s movie.
I mean,
Oh,
it's fucking Eddie Furlong, so it's got to be
Yeah.
early 90s.
That should have been my first clue. Yeah. Well, Terminator 2 was 91.
That was
Yeah.
that was the start of his career, dude. T2, Brain Scan, Pet Cemetery 2. Oh, I better stop. We're gonna veer off into like a horror movie podcast.
Does it just end there? I mean, I don't think.
Yeah, that might be it. We might have just summed up his career.
So wait, what were we talking about before we start talking?
I've-
Like, this is
Virtual reality.
While we're in a virtual reality right
Yeah.
now.
Well, we're in a simulation. Yeah.
2020 is complicated.
Honestly, though, I feel like me getting virtual reality finally, the timing couldn't have been any fucking better.
Nice.
Like it's like the perfect social escape when you can't be social, like I don't know about many other areas, but our county right now is back on lockdown, so many other people probably aren't, but yeah, we like everything got locked back down now for a week, and we have to practice social distancing still. So being able to like hop into a virtual pub and bullshit with people in a 3D VR environment, pretty weird, and I think the right time for it.
Now, is it an actual pub that you're going into?
Oh yeah, dude, VR chat. There's like virtual bars, there's virtual nightclubs, there's completely off the rails things like.
Okay, I was gonna say that's really disappointing if it's just recreating reality. Like it should have like the first thing should have been like a space station, then go more like off from there. Like don't start with a pub.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of like there's virtual karaoke bars. People will hop into Discord and like queue up requests, and then you hop in the virtual karaoke world and sing along.
That's fine. I'm just saying, like, reality is awful. Don't simulate it.
Oh, it's awful virtual as well. Trust me, I've seen some things, Dave, in the last 2 weeks. I've seen some things. That's the funny thing, too, about VR chat. It's supposed to be all ages. They ban anything that's not, safe for work or, like, all age-friendly. But it is not all age-friendly, Dave. It is not.
Are you scarred? I mean, you sound a little shook there.
You can't unsee
Too much.
You can't unsee what you have seen in virtual reality, Dave. It's strange times there in the virtual realm.
So I can't remember. Were you pro or con virtual reality at the beginning of this conversation?
I'm pro, but it definitely has
terrible.
its downsides for sure. It's chaos in there, Dave. It's a lawless land.
Like what they thought Second Life was going to be.
I never played Second Life, but I've heard stories, and yeah, I feel like this is exactly all those stories come to life. I've seen some cool shit too. Like I've had some cool conversations with people in there and shit so far over the last couple of weeks. But yeah, there's some weird stuff going on.
Because you haven't sold me on this at all. You haven't even told me it's just like Lawnmower Man.
As somebody who really wants to go on a date right now, this doesn't seem like a viable option to me at all.
Nah, unless you want to like go on a date with a sweaty anime nerd who's
Selling
drunk
me?
and
Okay.
Go on.
using a voice changer to sound like an anime character.
Well, just email me the details.
Yeah, for the most part, it seems like pretty immature, but I have found like more mature folks in the karaoke rooms, and there's some bars called the Great Pug. There was more adult people in there just having conversations and stuff. But
so what do you look like?
what do I?
What's your I don't know if they use Avatar or
I'm a big titty anime chick, Dave. I mean, what else would I be?
I should have known. Why did I ask?
Yeah.
But safe for work. I'm clothed. Absolutely. I don't even know what my avatar is, Dave. The one I've been using lately, I copied from someone else. I'm some green-haired anime chick, like 8 foot tall, glowing green. I have like body armor on and a giant green glowing sword. It's pretty cool. And I was like, yeah, I'll rock that. Why not?
So what's with the height? It sounds like height is a thing in this.
Because you can adjust height. There's a lot of people that are like microscopic. Like they're like teeny tiny little avatars. You can hardly see them and they're like running around. But then there's also dudes who are like 20 feet tall, bursting through like the ceilings of the rooms that we're in and things like that. Just to, I don't know, be big. But my avatar's tall, Dave, because I have high heels, okay?
This also just sounds like one giant group therapy session.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure there's people writing papers right now on...
Yeah.
On
Like I didn't
VR
really
chat,
even mean
dude.
that in like a shitty way. Like that, it really does just sound like a lot of people collectively working on their shit in a shared space. I'm actually kind of swinging back around to being like, maybe this is not a bad thing.
Yeah, same.
Everyone's just like, all cards on the table. And you hit the ground running.
It's
I don't know. Yeah.
it's not like Facebook fucking nailed it, you know.
Or like Facebook and that sort of like weird manufactured, highly curated presentation of yourself. This just seems like raw, uncut id.
It reminds me of old internet, dude. Like back in the early 90s, you know what I mean? Where it was kind of like just free-for-all and weird chat rooms and things of that nature. And bulletin boards. It's like all that wrapped into one and put into a 3D space. It's interesting. It's the only thing that has felt like old internet to me in well over a decade, probably since when 4chan came to life and was becoming popular in like 2004, 2005. Like that felt like old internet, and I know I'm dating myself pretty hard here, but like that only lasted like a year before 4chan turned into a cesspool. But
I assume all of our listeners know that we're old.
yeah, I'm an old fuck.
I posted a selfie this week. I really must have needed some attention. I had to like take myself to the side and be like, okay,
I
you're
saw it. I was
40,
like, whoa,
man.
Nick took a selfie. He's like,
You're turning 40. It's going to be okay. Like, I know you like want to be seen right now, but you're good. You're good. Okay. Fuck, you're an idiot. Yeah. This is where I'm at. Old. Yeah, we're all fucking old. People should know that.
Yeah. I don't trust my rhythm. I think that's the problem. I probably am not doing it on a proper quarter note. I'm probably doing like 1, 2, 3, and then like a 16th note. That's why I'm going early.
That's because we don't never practice that. So we have sequencers do that for us. Never practice rhythm. Terrible at rhythm.
That is in cello. That is my 100%. Like every problem I have is based on rhythm.
Oh, I bet.
Like
That's
my intent.
seriously?
My problem is that I am constantly going too fast, and I've recorded myself. I pick up speed.
That's interesting.
So like if I've got to do like a half note, I clearly am just like, oh, this is taking too long.
See, that's the only thing I don't have problems with is rhythm in things. Like I can find rhythm in a lot of things that like I guess you wouldn't normally
no,
expect
can you do them?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's why I've been playing Beat Saber a lot. Like, and it's actually been into going back to virtual reality. Like, it's kind of annoying me because I noticed there's a few notes that are off in some of the songs that are not where they should be rhythmically. Like just a little bit off, and it pisses me off because I have a real good sense of rhythm. Like sometimes I think I have like a fucking metronome in my brain. But
This is the weird thing though. The second my instructor starts to like when he starts playing, I sync up to him instantaneously.
yeah.
The second it is me by myself, my rhythm gets like I start to pick up speed. And I think the same thing is like when I used to play like Guitar Hero or any of those like rhythm games,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a visual cue, I'm dead on. And if someone else is playing, I will sync up to that. And like music, if I'm listening to music, I will tap my toe. The second it is me by myself with just my brain, I will start out at the right rhythm, and then 4 bars in,
That's interesting.
it's already like, dude, you're going way too fast.
I'm pretty good at keeping pace because I have a tap tempo app on my phone. Because when I go on my walks, which I've been doing late at night now, just to stay away from people, I get a lot of beats in my head. You know what I mean? And like,
Yeah.
I like to keep track of what the BPM of them are and stuff like that. So like, I'll just have them like in my head, or I'll even like quietly beatbox them to myself, things like that. And like, I'll tap it on the phone, and I'll pay attention to the BPMs and shit. And like, I'm almost always like at a steady number whenever I do that. Like I can just punch in a BPM. It usually is around 110, like between 100 to 120, but usually around 110 is like seems to be the beats that pop into my head, and I can keep track almost to the decimal like in my head. It's weird. Yeah, I can tap it out and it'll just be right on point. And sometimes I can even tell what BPM it's going to be before I even tap it out. I like rhythms. I don't know. I just suck ass with like keeping track of pitches and melodies and tones. I can't do that shit at all. Yeah, I feel like I probably should have picked up some drums instead of the saxophone when I was in band as a kid, dude.
I mean, everyone, that would be the better choice.
Yes.
We don't need more saxophones.
I just mean structurally wise. Like I probably would have been decent at drumming had I started practicing it, as opposed to like trying to make a saxophone sound like anything that resembles music.
It's an awful instrument.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people that
Really
play it
was.
well. I mean, there are great
Some
saxophonists.
people can play it well.
Yeah, but there's like it's like 5.
I was not one of them.
You weren't the 6th great saxophonist.
No.
Yeah.
I'm not even like Al Jurgensen level.
So wait, what else was on people's lists?
I am personally dying to know about the fucking Pulsar 23.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here.
You want me to discuss that a little?
Uh,
My brief love affair with the Pulsar 23.
We were getting like the trailer. The Pulsar's on the way. The Pulsar is leaving the building.
There are people that have actually reached out to me and were like, "Oh, is he going to get a Pulsar? Because I want to hear what he thinks about it."
Dude, I wanted to hear what I thought about it. Like, I was excited for it. It seemed like the perfect instrument to me. And in some senses, it was.
We'll start from the beginning. You had a set of expectations that you had for it. You had like a plan for what you were going to use it for, like what you wanted to do with it.
I tried to keep my expectations low, but I did have some basic ideas of what I was going to do with it. Yeah. Well, I'll start from the very beginning. Yeah, a few pulsars had popped up on muffs. None of them that I was able to message in time were black, and I was really aiming for a black one. That's what I had on pre-order, because that's the color that I really wanted, obviously. Some were white, some were orange, and I was like, so I let those pass. There was one black one that popped up. It sold almost instantly. I missed out on it. And then in the middle of the night, one popped up, and I had just gotten my stimulus check, finally. And I was like, I think this is fate telling me something here. So
you know what? I'm going to interject. It sounds
Yeah.
like you were just looking for an excuse to call it fate. That doesn't sound like fate.
Big Daddy Trump wanted me to have a Pulsar 23. So I had to do my democratic duty and buy it, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Stimulate that economy.
Right.
Of another country.
Do my do my patriotic duty of supporting Russia. So I messaged the guy, and I was the first to hit him up. So I was like, all right, let's do this. Funny story, though. So we agree that I would pay shipping. Shipping was not included in the price.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, fair enough. I had, because of the nature of the stimulus check and all that, I had to like do half on credit card, half on my bank account, whatever. So I sent him 2 separate payments so that PayPal didn't like destroy me with fees. And he's like, okay, cool. We'll do shipping like after the fact. I'll tell you how much it costs to ship out, and you can PayPal me once it's out. I'm like, cool. So he does that. He hits me with an invoice, $230
Oh.
to ship. And I said, what the fuck?
Does he live on the moon?
The funny thing was, he goes, I'll let you know ahead of time if it's anything astronomical.
What?
So apparently $230 to him is not astronomical for shipping. But yeah, he sent it out fully insured through UPS, which is the absolute worst and most expensive, and signature required, which I asked him not to do. So I was a little tilted about that, but it did come in like 2 days. So plugged it in, went to town on it immediately. It is about as far from like an intuitive drum machine as can be, but it's not unfamiliar territory. You know what I mean? Like having experience with circuit bent devices and things like that. Like I was getting it. Having lots of years fucking with a modular, I understood what was going on there. Like,
So real quick though, like, are you talking about like the weird little post? The post that they have, that's what was like non-intuitive?
Well, not just the post, but everything is either body contact or using those posts and alligator clips. And you can even use like, your body on those posts as well. Everything is very tactile, very physical. It's a completely different flow than probably any other drum machine I've ever messed with. It was interesting to see how everything was laid out in there. Like once you get a feel for it, like everything's kind of broken down into cells. It's a little confusing due to how everything is like labeled or lack thereof. I feel like this machine could definitely use some sort of overlay to kind of group things up. Like in the quick start
So
guide.
is a cell like a sample, or is a cell like a track? Like what analog with like typical nomenclature?
I guess you could call it a track. Vlad himself might call it a track. I forget how it's worded, but you get 4 drum voices, all a little different. You got your kick, your bass, your snare clap, and then like your hat. If I recall, that's how I was using them, at least. You know what I mean? Like they're
It's like
pretty.
the whole machine's like those 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And then everything else around it is how you're sequencing or modulating those 4 voices. And then at the bottom of each voice, you have like your touch pads, which are used to enter notes into the looper. Like it's all like loop based.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't really sequence, you record loops.
But and that's all real time. Like these, is it like a
Yes.
looper?
You can quantize, but it's like not real time quantization. Like it would be after the fact, like once the loop takes effect.
Could you change a loop? Could you
Yes.
alter a loop that you had done? Like you had fucked it up, and like was it easy to sort of like reset or adjust?
You could remove things that you recorded. You could overdub things that you recorded, and you could mix new loops on top of your previous loop. So it's kind of like working with tape, but it's invisible. You know what I mean? And like you don't have like a lot of visual feedback. You know what I mean? You're just kind of going by sound and feel, which is cool. It was definitely different. And you could also like record notes. Like one thing you could do is there's a big clock divider up there. So you could actually like send gates from the clock divider to your drum voices and record the notes that it's being inputted. And you could like break those up in weird ways using other utilities that's on there.
So wait, are these loops notes or are they actual samples? Like if you do a bunch of this looping and you make a bunch of these recordings and you go, wait, this now the sound doesn't sound right, and you make an adjustment.
There's no sample. It's all analog. So
right, but like you make an adjustment,
you're
and
not
you start playing
recording
that loop.
sound. You're recording like notes and velocity.
So you can make adjustments to the sounds, and
Yes.
you will now get those new sounds with
Correct.
the next iteration of the loop. Okay.
Right.
So it's not like a looper pedal where you're actually recording the sound and hearing that sound now
No,
being played
you're
back.
recording like your interaction.
Yeah,
You
like
know what I mean?
like an MPC, like real time MIDI input record kind of sounds like, you know,
Yeah.
like hit the pads and it'll quantize on the next pass.
You're recording voltages.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's basically what it is. So like you can have variances in the velocity and things like that, depending on like how hard you touch it or accent it, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm sorry, I'm harping on this. Can you go back and say like, oh, I didn't touch that hard enough, and adjust just that one time you pressed it?
Yep.
Okay. And is that easy to do, or was that something that was somewhat cumbersome?
I played with it a little bit. It was a little cumbersome. Like ultimately, like after playing with that for a day or two, I just started sequencing it via MIDI. I was using my vector for the most part, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Which is one of the things that turned me off, because I felt like by doing that, I was kind of missing out on a large focus of the device itself. You know what I mean? Like it seems like the whole looper functionality of it was something Vlad thought out quite a bit and was meant to be used with. You know what I mean? Like it's meant to be kind of played.
Would you still buy it if it was just like a sound module that was not as much money? You know what I mean? Or is that what you're maybe getting to? Is that was kind of part of the magic of it?
Exactly. That's like the magic of it. I mean, you can sequence it like you would any other machine, but you're missing out on some of the magic there at that point. And then if you're just sequencing a 4-voice analog drum machine, then it's like, what are you doing with this then? You know what I mean? Like there's definitely other options out there in the market if you're just looking for like a small handful of analog drum voices.
Now, could you see using this something like outside of the studio, maybe like in a live setting? Would this be more useful to
If
you?
you were gonna do your entire performance around it, sure. But it's kind of like, I mean, obviously you can't save presets, you can't, recall anything. You would have to either enter in loops on the fly, or have it all patched up ahead of time. So you're not going to get a whole lot of time out of that. You know what I mean? Like, I was trying to think of a way to use it live. That was part of the reason why I bought it. And the more I used it, the more I struggled to see how I would do that efficiently. You know, I mean, sure, it's possible, but like, it would be a giant pain in the ass.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the whole thing of like finding that balance in a live set of instruments between like being able to recall stuff, but also having like stuff that you're playing. It sounds like maybe this went too far the other direction.
Sure, if you were going to do like an improvised noise set and you wanted to add some rhythmic elements to it, I think it would be amazing for that. Like, if for example, Nick, if we were still doing like 4-pi stuff,
Right.
I think this would be the fucking ultimate drum machine to have been in 4Pi. You know what I mean? Like just
Yeah.
improvised, very raw, very analog, very tactile machine. And that's the type of sound that comes out of it too. At least that's the sound I was pulling out of it. It's very heavy, dark, industrial compatible sound. You know, it has a good sound to it. It's definitely not a 909, 808 sounding machine. You know what I mean? Like it sounds like something coming out of the abyss. You know, it's just very. It's not hard to conjure doom out of it. You know.
See, that sounds super appealing.
Yeah, the effects on it, you know, like it has a couple different flavors of distortion you can get. It's not clean by any means. Like I feel like if you're not using those distortion effects or the delay slash verb that's on there, you're kind of missing out on the point of the machine. Like if you're stripping away those effects, which feel like they belong there, you know what I mean? Like then you just have, again, 4 analog voices. It's like...
Was there a lot of variety with them?
You can get some variation out of them for sure.
Yeah.
There was different modes you could do with them, like a phaser type thing with the delay and things like that. Like for only having like 3 bass effects, like there's a lot of variance to them. Like you got distortion, delay, verb.
Were they also responsive to like touch control and stuff? I mean, is that how you
everything
control
on
them as well?
it is. Everything on the machine is all touch based, or you're using those posts and alligator clips. And it has a lot of other utilities on board, which is kind of what was the tipping point for me. Like you have to be very meticulous with it. You have to like plan out how you're going to approach this machine. You know what I mean? Like you have to get your patch in your head, figure out how to make it work. And obviously there's a lot of room for happy accidents and discovery along the way, but like you're not just going to like just plug this in and immediately like start banging out something unique with it. It takes a lot of effort to get creative with it, and I liked that, but I also felt it was very redundant, mainly because I have a modular already. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like everything that I do in my modular is mostly drum and rhythm based. Like I kind of have 3 cases at this point that are all geared in that direction that I already have to carefully think out and patch out from scratch every time. Having a Pulsar right next to my modular kind of felt like there was way too much overlap there. And just, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like I didn't need 2 major expensive machines to do that.
Especially if it's like a good bit of configuration and patching, then it's like, well, I'm already going to patch over here. Like
exactly. Like it felt like a microcosm of my modular. Like to even call it a drum machine, I think is kind of not doing it enough justice. It is a mini modular. It's 4 voices surrounded by utilities and voltage recorders and voltage controlled effects. You know, like everything in there is broken down. Like you got your clock dividers, your attenuators, your like what else was there? There's a number of things on there that are like modular style utility.
And just real quick, like you couldn't save anything. You're basically starting from scratch every time you turn it on.
I mean, you can save your loops that you've recorded.
Okay.
Yeah, you have a few banks that you can work with to save like your recorded loops, and that's basically how you would make a song, so to speak. You would record different structures into each bank, and then on the fly you could bounce between banks. You know what I mean? Either in like a quantized fashion or not. Yeah, you know what I mean? Kind of like jumping from pattern to pattern to create variance with your loops. But like you're only going to do that for like a song. You know what I mean? Which comes back to like performing live. Like you're probably going to be banging out that stuff live if you want to perform with it, because otherwise you're going to be very limited with what you can set up ahead of time to work with. You're either going to be tweaking it live or you're going to be sequencing it live. You don't really have enough hands to do both. You have to figure out how you would approach that.
It's kind of interesting to hear you talk about it, because as I, not to derail too much, but I sold the MPC-1, and it was a similar thing. Like, that thing's a fucking computer, and like it was like you have to do what it wants you to do. It was harder to get it to be a part of what I wanted to have done, and I may be at the point where it's like I don't know if I can deal with like another something like the analog rhythm that's different. Like I'm feeling kind of like I need to use what I have and find things that can work with it, because I'm not gonna change too much right now. Maybe it's just right now, but it sounds like a similar, like you're not gonna, if you can't come to the party, I'm not going to go to yours, maybe. You know, it'll make like a weird analogy. Like,
that made perfect sense, oddly.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to ever sell or downsize my modular quite a bit, I would probably pick up a Pulsar again. I think it would be perfect. A little self-contained modular percussion box.
No, but is this going to be like that thing when Nick and I both got Dark Matter and were fired up for it, and you were like, I have all these other modules to get that sound? Is this the type of thing where later you're going to be like, I've got like 2 full racks to get what the Pulsar was giving me in a small box?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, it is expensive for sure. Like, I felt like the price was a little high, but then I kind of like broke it down in my head, and I'm thinking, well, if you break it down per section of device there, like you got your utility, your effects, your voices, like I don't think you're going to be able to beat that price if you were to build that all out in a modular box. You know what I mean? So like for someone who doesn't already have a modular and they're trying to get something in that direction, you know, like they want an industrial style modular drum machine, you could definitely like bypass trying to piece it all together and just get a Pulsar and have everything at your disposal that you would ever need right there, pretty much. And then if you ever wanted to expand, it's compatible. Like there's converters on the top left where you can take, you know, modulations CV from your Euro rack, and it'll convert it so that you can clip the alligator clip to that post and now direct it anywhere within the Pulsar.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So Vlad definitely thought this thing through. Like there was many times when I was playing with it and I would just like kind of giggle to myself. I'm like, this dude really thought this thing through. Like he is truly a fucking mad scientist of our time.
Yeah, that's interesting. I kind of expected your complaints to maybe be around connectivity or like integrating it with another system, because I saw the posts and the touchpads and I'm like, oh, that might be like
no,
some
yeah,
finagling to integrate, but it sounds like no.
No, yeah, I was able to integrate it seamlessly. It was
That's awesome.
For 2 weeks that it sat on my desk, it was basically an extension of my modular, and that was ultimately why I sold it, because I was like, I didn't want to extend my modular any further. You know what I mean? I didn't want to add something else that meticulous.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense.
And around the same time frame of the complete opposite side of the spectrum, I had also gotten the Electron Cycles, which I'm still very much enjoying, and I like the contrast of it. You know what I mean? It's completely different from like the Pulsar or my modular, sound-wise, functionality-wise, and price-wise. So I kept the Cycles, as weird as that sounds for me, and sold the Pulsar for what I paid for it.
That sentence has to be on the... I mean, even in 2020, being the year that it is, that has to be one of the least likely sentences that anyone would have thought they were going to hear this year.
I know. Trust me. It surprises myself to hear me say it. But I'm still, like, kind of really digging the Cycles. For $300, I feel like you can't beat it. It's the perfect contrast to what I was looking for. I didn't want, something... like I said, that felt like an extension of my modular. I wanted something different from when I need to shift gears and not sit there and patch everything from scratch, when I can create some sounds, save them, and then recall them whenever I need them again. So yeah, the Cycles has been doing a lot in my setup right now. And I don't have that guilt either. Like I kind of felt, I don't want to call it buyer's remorse when I bought the Pulsar, but I was like, it was hard for me to justify having it, knowing how much it cost and what it was doing, and that there was overlap in the studio. Yeah, I kind of felt unburdened when I sold it, to be honest.
That makes sense too.
Like it felt like when I spent a lot of money on something, I put this weight on myself to, you know what I mean? To make sure that I'm getting my money's worth and that I'm not just like spending my money for no reason. Like I gotta be getting my value out of it. And
Yeah, I still have a Jupiter 6 upstairs that I never use. It needs to have like repairs done on it, but like I can't make that happen right now. Now, granted, I paid $700 for that synth, not nearly what it could be sold for, but it bugs me that it sits up there. Someone could be fucking using it, and that's I don't know if I would be me if it was working right now, you know.
yeah, I think it's a great machine. I don't want to dissuade anyone from checking it out. You know,
I don't think you have either. I mean, because as you're
Yeah.
describing this, like I'm sitting here going like, oh man, I wouldn't. Sounds like something I should check out. Just sounds like an amazing fucking machine that just wasn't for you.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes back to what I was saying earlier. Like, I'm putting a lot of thought and effort into workflow right now, and I felt like A, there was too much redundancy there, and B, just it didn't fit the workflow. It's not that the machine didn't fit my studio or the sound didn't fit me. Like, quite the contrary. I feel like it was almost a perfect fit for me, sound-wise. Like, I spent a lot of effort trying to make things, you know, kind of sound that way. And Vlad just has it all there ready to be tapped into. It's pretty convenient, you know. But yeah, it's all just a workflow thing.
Well, that's cool. I mean, now there's another one out there in the wild. Maybe someone's gonna get this and make shit that we want to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I hope. There also seems to be a lot of people who are just skimming the surface with it. Like I was watching a lot of YouTube demos, and there's a lot of people who are just doing like the very base thing with it.
It is pretty new, and it's a new workflow. It's a new idea. Like, give people a little bit of a chance to like break out of the mold a little bit.
I did see some people buying it and just making like 4/4 XOX style sequences with it. I was just scratching my head as to like why you would spend that much money and get a machine that is that like deep to do that. I don't know.
Yeah, like we talked about a little last time, you know, it's like what are you thinking if you're trying to get 909s out of that thing?
I don't know. I feel like it's a little early. People got this. They're going to, you know, the tried and true techniques, and while they're getting their feet under them with it. I still have cautious optimism that people can do cool stuff with it. It's too early to expect that out of them.
Yeah, it's a new instrument. It's going to take someone years to actually get like really good with it.
Right.
Well, you know, maybe not that long, but you know, like half of this shit when you buy it, it's like some idea about how it might function, and then you get to the reality of it, and it just might not be what you thought.
Yeah, I would definitely say there's not a whole lot out there that can prepare you for it. You know what I mean? Like, unless you're well versed in modular or circuit bent machines, you know, from a percussion standpoint, it's going to be unfamiliar territory for sure.
Yeah, I think he's got a bit of a cult following going on too, or at least people that are like really psyched about Lyra gear, you know. And
I can see that for sure. Yeah, I don't know if I want to go as far as to say that I'm like a Vlad fanboy or anything, but I definitely been like paying close attention to everything that he's been making.
You got the pipe.
Yeah,
I got the pipe. I did not get the Lyra, and I had a brief love affair with Pulsar, so I don't know what that makes me, but I think he's doing great work. I hope he keeps it up. I mean, I'm sure he will. Like, these things are selling out, you know, as soon as they're built. He's for $2,000 a pop. I feel like there's got to be some profit margin in there that he's making, you know, for the amount that he's selling, for sure. Like, I was tempted by the Lyra. Like, as I had the Pulsar sitting there, I was kind of like, you know what, that Lyra is even more appealing right now. It'd be the perfect companion to that and the pipe. But yeah. Well, I'm done babbling about the Pulsar.
Are you sure?
I think so, yeah. I think that sums it up.
So what else was on everyone else's lists?
I didn't have too much more. We could talk about the effects aid.
How it's still impossible to get.
Yeah. So, you know, like apparently it turns out there was a shipping issue with the effects aids that were coming to the United States, and they were in limbo, and they're still in limbo technically, but apparently they've cleared shipping. But I just checked the Analog Haven site and didn't see anything.
This is becoming like a multi-episode saga. Our quest to get the effects aid, dude. Like, we've been trying to get these for the last 7-8 months now, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about it in like 4 or 5 different episodes. How we still can't fucking get one.
And then I saw like you can pre-order them from a website in Canada that I'd never heard of, and I'm just like, well, is this just some idea about you getting effects aids, or like do you have shit to sell? It's no
I
pre-order.
wouldn't trust that.
Yeah, no, it's like when is that? So yeah, it's a hard one to get.
Everything's been hard to get right now, man. Like anything new that I've got in my rig has taken either months of pre-order wait, or I just got lucky and like grabbed one the minute they got in stock somewhere, only to see them go out of stock like minutes after I placed my order.
Oh yeah, Dave and I ordered audio jacks for our IntelliJ 7U cases. Most people don't know this, and I didn't either, but that actually there's another version of the IntelliJ 7U with different internal guts, and it lets you do some different stuff. It like normalizes the headphone to the output tile, which was the big thing I wanted. But those, I even got a survey from the USPS to be like, oh, this lost package claim that you filed, blah, blah, blah. How's that going? Everything was zeros because nobody's even gotten back to me yet. It's been almost 2 weeks now, and I've no idea. And luckily it's just like, it's $50 because they were like $24 each or something. So I'm not like super sweating it, but I can't use like 2 of the tiles I have now because that shit hasn't arrived. But it's just like, I was getting like consistent service from USPS for years and years, and it's just been like chaos lately.
This is just a frightening view into the future where like there are no stores anymore and everything is delivered, and what happens when that falls apart.
Right. Yeah, like I got a RAMPLE, a Squarp RAMPLE ordered directly from them because it was the only place that they were in stock. It took me like 2 weeks to get when they said it would take 2 days. But I mean, I ain't complaining. It's noticeable the delays. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the RAMPLE came through. My tip
Still
top
like
audio. I do. I haven't dove into it too much because it's taken so long to get here. I've only had it for like 2 days now. But I've been playing with it a lot over the last 2 days, and I'm digging it.
Yeah, it's talking about it last time had me going back to check it, and it seemed to do a good design on that. It looks pretty dope.
It feels rock solid. I like the design. The interface is minimal menu adjusting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you kind of have to set up your kits ahead of time and stuff. Like, you're not going to be doing a whole lot from the module. I haven't looked into it yet, but I don't even think you can record into this. But everything is with a single touch of the button or a double tap to enter the alt mode. And I've been liking it a lot.
Sweet.
It's kind of exactly what I've been looking for a sampler module. You know what I mean? Nothing too complicated, nothing too limited. It's like a nice in-between. It's like definitely not a 301 or like an assimilator, but it's also much more versatile than like a tip-top 1 or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think they hit a good sweet spot with that mix of stuff. And a little more appealing than the sample.
Yeah. I liked it over the slomple or whatever because it has effects per channel. You don't have to like limit which channels you want to be able to pitch, adjust, and things like that. It seemed a little more versatile, even though the sample has recording in and some functionality that this one doesn't. This is more compact, it's cheaper, and it just seems more versatile in the ways that I gave a shit about. So far, so good. Haven't even gotten to the point of like making my own kits yet. I've just been playing with what's on board and bit crushing it and playing with the sample rates, sample start times, all that, just messing around. But yeah, that's one of the only things that have arrived that I ordered. I got the Tip Top Z-Verb finally arrived. Right. That was luck. Like, that had been sold out everywhere for months, and I had them like had one on pre-order at Perfect Circuit and just never showed up, so I canceled it. And then like one day I just happened to check Detroit Modular, and somehow, some way, they had a black one in stock, so I grabbed it up. Kind of, I like it, but I don't love it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not that amazing. Like, it has 24 different algorithms, but they're only like marginally different. You know, like sonically, just so much so that it's hard to tell what is what. 'Cause you don't have a screen, you just have to push the button and flip through them, and sometimes it's hard to hear like noticeable differences between the algorithms.
That's the tough thing about the effects aid too, is that it sounds great. Like all the presets are awesome that I've heard basically.
Yeah, and there's so much variance between them, you know, and you don't have to be limited like with the tip-top ones. Like, oh, if you want delay, you got to get the delay module. If you want reverb, you got to get the reverb. Or you can compromise and get a little bit of both in your Z5000 or whatever. And it's like,
Well, the FX8 also has the advantage of it not being real. And it's just a computer simulation, so they can make it sound however they want. I mean, it makes it a little bit easier.
It's a mythical unicorn
Yeah.
that we're all chasing.
So the Z-Verb, though, you're going to keep?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it. I'm finding use for it, and it's small. It's definitely smaller than like a ZDSP, and it's nice to have similar.
Your tone is just so down. Like
dude, I'm not a
like
fan
you are.
of like.
This is like the opposite of excitement.
I feel like Gurr just made some bad choices with this design, as I've stated in the past in a previous episode. Like the fact that it's mono in is kind of dumb. The fact that you're limited to those algorithms and you can't kind of swap them out via software like you could do with an effects aid, or swap out a card like you can do with a ZDSP. It just kind of feels like a half-assed ZDSP, you know, that you're limited to a very select few of algorithms. But the algorithms that are nice. So, you know, the biggest appeal that's making me keep it so far is the fidelity function. It's like the same idea of manipulating the CV clock on the ZDSP.
Oh. Now, do you have to have like a 30 kilohertz?
You don't. You don't have to have any CV to do it. It's a dedicated knob.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
so you just you just twist on the knob and you immediately start like circuit bending the algorithm.
That's a lot better than the ZDSP, because like the ZDSP you had to get like a Dixie or like a video oscillator to actually have something fast enough to like even meet the clock.
Right. So you can get some interesting aliased, strange lo-fi reverb out of it by fucking with the fidelity. But on the other hand, I don't even think we can give Gurr credit to that, because Erica's effects module Black Hole has the same thing. It has a knob dedicated to doing the same thing, which I liked on that one too. But
so why don't you have that instead?
I didn't like the algorithms in that one. There was too many that I didn't need. Whereas the Z-Verb, it's all reverb, and that's all I gave a shit about. Like I bought it mainly just to do reverb, you know what I mean? But if it had stereo in, which the Erica did, I would be way more into it. Like the way that I've readjusted my workflow, like everything at the end of chain goes through the modular at some point. So having a reverb unit that I can't really use for external stereo processing just feels stupid to me in the year 2020. Right. Like there's absolutely no reason why you can't have a stereo input on that thing. Maybe it saves a few bucks. I don't know, but I would have gladly spent a few extra bucks to have that capability. Everything else that I've ordered recently is still up in the air. Still waiting on the reminder. Still waiting on the flex temporal sequencer. Got a few other things up in the air too. Just waiting for them to come.
So the theme of this episode is just you looking longingly out of the front window, and like some sort of like postal truck starts to drive by, and you're like a dog. You start panting, but it's not for you. It's for one of your neighbors, and then you.
Dude, no, I ain't gonna lie. Like I've been buying stuff probably because of the lockdown, and I have nothing else to do or look forward to every day except for when the mailman drives down the street, hoping it's gonna stop at my house and give me a new toy.
Jesus, I was kidding. I didn't.
The Mixpre, I was like, so where are you gonna go on vacation this year? Oh, you're not fucking going on vacation. You should just buy this goddamn thing. Like
That was my justification. I'm like, well, I would have spent this much on a trip to like the Outer Banks or something, but that's not happening now, so I'll just buy more shit.